Hey there, learner. Ready for another deep dive? This time, you've sent us Modern Systems by Joseph Valacich.
Oh, a classic.
Yeah, and I have to admit, looking at it, it's a bit intimidating.
I can see why you might say that, but don't worry, it's a classic for a reason.
Okay, good.
This book, it breaks down the entire process of building software systems, like from the very beginning,
Oh, wow.
from that initial aha moment to keeping those systems running smoothly for years to come.
So it's more than just, like, coding.
Oh, way more.
Oh, okay.
Modern systems really emphasizes that building software is like constructing a complex building.
Oh,
You need a blueprint,
yeah,
a solid plan, and a really deep understanding of the people who will be using it.
the people who will be living in it.
Exactly.
I like that, okay.
Yeah. So you need to understand like their needs and even the politics of the organization that you're building it for.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin with this?
Well, the book starts with something called the Systems Development Lifecycle, or SDLC.
SDLC, okay.
Yeah, just picture it as a roadmap for software development.
I like that.
Breaking the whole process down into manageable phases.
Okay, what are those phases?
So we've got planning, analysis, design, implementation, and maintenance.
It sounds kind of linear.
Yeah, and
There-
not quite, right?
Yeah, is it really that straightforward?
No, it's not. And actually, Valacich acknowledges that the SDLC isn't always a rigid step-by-step process.
Oh, okay.
He introduces this concept of the analysis design code test loop,
Oh.
which, highlights the iterative nature of software development.
Oh, I see.
So you might analyze a bit, design a bit, write some code, you test it, and then circle back to analysis based on what you've learned.
Okay, so it's more like a dance than a march, right?
Exactly. And that's where agile methodologies come in.
Okay.
They really embrace this iterative nature,
Uh-huh.
prioritizing flexibility and rapid responses to change.
I can see how that would be important in software development.
Oh, absolutely. And the book actually includes a super helpful table comparing agile and traditional methodologies,
Oh, okay.
showing you how agile really shines when requirements are fluid and the project demands adaptability.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm curious now about where the software itself comes from.
Right.
Is it all custom built from scratch?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Modern Systems explores different ways that software comes to be, from off-the-shelf solutions to custom-built systems and even these massive enterprise resource planning systems or ERP systems.
Yeah, RP systems.
Yeah, I think SAP,
Oh, yeah.
things like that.
I've heard those can be real headaches.
Oh, they can be to implement.
They can be.
Okay.
ERP systems are like the super tankers of the software world, right?
Okay.
They offer the advantage of consolidating all your business data into a single repository.
Yeah.
But implementing them, woof, it can be complex, time-consuming, and expensive.
So it's a trade-off, you're saying, between power and agility.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Valacich emphasizes that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to software.
Okay.
The best choice, it always depends on your specific needs, budget, and risk tolerance.
Yeah, I can see how that makes sense.
Right.
And I'm remembering now, there's this concept of software reuse, right?
Oh, yes.
Which sounds fascinating.
Hmm.
Is it as simple as just like copying and pasting code?
It's a bit more nuanced than that.
Okay.
Software reuse is about leveraging existing code modules for new projects, right?
Okay.
Like think of it as building with prefabricated components.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Valacich argues that it has the potential to really speed up development, reduce costs, and increase reliability. But
Mm-hmm.
there are challenges too.
Okay, like what?
Figuring out what is truly reusable
Yeah,
and then how to adapt that to a new context.
makes sense.
He uses the terms abstraction, storage, and recontextualization to describe the key steps involved. So it's not just copying and pasting code.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the underlying logic
Uh-huh.
and adapting that to a new purpose.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. Now let's talk about project management, because the book dedicates an entire chapter to it, so I'm assuming it's pretty important.
Well, imagine a project manager as the conductor of an orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
They bring together these diverse talents, keep everyone on track, and make sure the final performance is harmonious.
I like that.
Valacich stresses that this role, it requires a blend of technical expertise and managerial skills.
So what does a project manager actually do?
Well, their responsibilities, they span the entire project lifecycle, from initiation and planning to execution and closure.
So really the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a dynamic role that involves constant communication, problem solving,
Yeah.
and a deep understanding of both the project goals and the people involved.
So they're kind of like the glue that holds the whole project together.
Absolutely. And speaking of getting everyone on board,
Yeah.
Valacich, he emphasizes the importance of carefully identifying and selecting the right projects to pursue in the first place.
So it's not just about having a great idea. It's about making sure that it aligns with what?
It aligns with the organization's strategic goals.
Okay, so you're building the right things, not just building things right.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, cool.
He outlines a process for identifying potential projects, classifying them, ranking them based on criteria like their potential value, feasibility, and alignment with strategic goals.
So that involves a lot of number crunching.
It does involve some number crunching, things like return on investment. But Valacich also stresses the importance of qualitative factors, too.
Like what?
So things like the project strategic alignment, impact on stakeholders, and the level of organizational support it has.
Okay.
He calls this conducting a feasibility study.
Okay.
And he argues that it's all about understanding the risks and challenges before diving headfirst into a project.
You got to find that sweet spot where, like, financial viability, strategic value, and stakeholder support all come together.
That's a great way to put it. And once you've got that green light for a project, the next crucial step is figuring out exactly what the system should do.
Okay.
That's where requirements determination comes in.
So this is where you start talking to the users.
Absolutely. Modern systems highlights all these different methods for gathering requirements, from interviewing and observing users to analyzing existing documentation.
Makes sense.
It's about piecing together this comprehensive understanding of what the system needs to accomplish and how it will actually be used.
I'm guessing this is where the difference between traditional and agile really comes into play.
You're right on the money.
Yeah.
Traditional methods, they often gather all requirements up front,
Yeah.
while Agile embraces this more iterative approach, gathering and refining requirements throughout the project lifecycle.
Okay, so it's not a waterfall.
Right.
It's more of a back and forth.
Exactly, more of a dance.
Yeah.
Valacich gives examples of Agile techniques like joint application development or JAD sessions
GAD session.
and the planning game. These involve intensive collaboration between developers and users to define requirements and prioritize features.
That sounds a lot more collaborative.
It is, yeah.
All right. So once you have those requirements, what happens next?
Well, you can start to visualize the system.
Okay.
Modern systems introduces the power of data flow diagrams, or DFDs.
DFDs.
Uh-huh.
Those are like blueprints for the data.
They are. DFDs map out the flow of information within a system, showing how data moves between processes, data stores, and external entities.
Okay.
He uses a case study of a fictional burger joint called Hoosial Burger
Okay.
to illustrate how to create them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So DFDs help you visualize like the system's plumbing?
That's a great analogy. They help you understand the data's journey from input to output and break down complex processes into smaller, more manageable steps.
I see. And once you've mapped out the data flows, then what? You have to structure the data itself.
That's where data modeling comes in specifically. Entity relationship, or ER modeling.
ER modeling, okay.
It's about understanding the things or entities in the system and how they relate to each other.
Okay.
So if we were modeling a library, the entities would be things like books, authors, and borrowers.
Okay, so you've got...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And ER diagrams, they use boxes for entities and lines for relationships, creating a visual map of the data structure.
I see.
Valacich explains how to define attributes, identify keys, and specify the cardinality of relationships.
Cardinality, that sounds a little intimidating.
Well, it's just about understanding how many instances of one entity can be related to instances of another.
Okay.
For example, a book can be borrowed by many borrowers.
Yeah.
That's one to many. But a borrower can only have one copy of a specific book at a time.
Okay.
So it's like the difference between a library card and a book.
I see.
Yeah, a library card can be used to borrow many books, but a book can only be borrowed by one person at a time.
Makes sense.
And during data modeling, it's important to capture business rules.
Okay.
These are constraints that define how entities relate and ensure data integrity.
Oh, I see.
So it's about creating a data model that reflects the real world
Uh-huh.
and anticipates future needs.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So once you have your data model, what's the next step?
Then you design the database itself.
Okay, so those boxes and lines from the ER diagram turn into tables and columns, like you're turning a blueprint into a real building.
That's a great analogy. Modern systems guides you through translating the conceptual model into a logical database schema,
Okay.
explains how to identify primary and foreign keys, and how to choose the right data types for each attribute.
So data types, things like...
Exactly, but there's more to it than just the logical structure.
Okay.
You also need to consider physical database design.
Physical design, what does that mean?
Well, it's about optimizing the way data is physically stored and accessed.
Okay.
Think about things like storage efficiency and data access speed.
Yeah, makes sense.
Valacich discusses different file organizations, indexing techniques, and data access methods that you can use to really fine-tune your database design.
So it's about finding the right balance between organizing the data logically and storing it physically in a way that like optimizes performance.
You nailed it. And modern systems emphasizes that database design is not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Okay.
The ideal design, it depends on the size and complexity of your system, the types of data you're storing, and the performance you need.
That makes a lot of sense. We've covered so much ground already.
I know, it's a lot, right?
From like understanding the SDLC and the different types of software
Uh-huh.
to the complexities of data modeling and database design.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how much goes into building a solid foundation for a software system.
It is. It's a lot of work.
What's next? What's next on our deep dive?
Well, now that we have our data stored and structured, it's time to think about how users will interact with the system.
Right.
In other words, we need to start designing the user interface.
So we're going to make sure it's not just functional,
Right.
but also user-friendly.
Exactly. We're going to make it visually appealing too.
Okay, that sounds like a whole other world of design
Yeah,
considerations.
It is.
I can't wait to see what Modern Systems has to say about it.
Let's dive in. Welcome back to our deep dive into modern systems. Remember those user-friendly interfaces?
Oh, yeah.
That we were just talking about?
Mm-hmm.
They're crucial
Yeah.
for making software that works for people,
Right.
not the other way around.
It's easy to forget about the human element when you get caught up in all those technical details.
I know, right?
But this book, Modern Systems,
Yeah.
keeps bringing us back to that idea.
That central idea.
Yeah,
It's all about the people.
exactly.
Valacich, he dedicates 2 whole chapters
Wow.
to designing forms and reports.
Okay.
And he constantly stresses the importance of usability and user-centered design.
So it's not just about aesthetics.
Aesthetics play a part,
Yeah.
but it goes much deeper
Yeah.
than just making things look pretty.
So it's about making sure information is communicated clearly
Yes.
and the system is intuitive to use.
The book provides all these guidelines for creating forms and reports that are clear, concise.
Okay.
Think about using effective layout, highlighting, color to guide the user's attention.
So it's a balance between like form and function.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Valacich, he's big on consistency.
Right.
Using standard conventions for buttons, menus, and those other interface elements
Yeah.
helps to reduce the user's cognitive load.
Okay.
And it's vital to provide clear feedback to the user, letting them know their actions have been registered
Uh-huh.
and what the system is doing.
Like having a conversation with the system.
Exactly. A smooth conversation, no awkward silences or misunderstanding.
Okay, I like that.
The book is full of examples of well-designed forms and reports,
Oh, cool.
showcasing best practices for different types of data entry, display, and visualization. Even dives into error handling,
Okay.
emphasizing the importance of clear and helpful messages
Yeah.
when something goes wrong.
So you're anticipating user errors.
Exactly. And Valacich makes a point that user interface design, this shouldn't be an afterthought.
Right.
It's an integral part
It should be there from the beginning.
from the very beginning.
Speaking of integration, I'm curious about how this all comes together on a larger scale.
Okay.
What happens when you're not just building one system,
Right.
but like multiple systems
Yeah.
that need to work together?
That's where Chapter 12 takes us.
Okay.
The world of distributed and internet systems.
Okay.
Think client-server architectures, data warehousing, that whole interconnected web that modern software relies on.
It's amazing how this book was written before cloud computing really took off.
I know, right?
These concepts still feel so relevant.
What's fascinating is that Valacich lays out these different approaches to distributed systems,
Okay.
each with their own trade-offs.
Right.
And we see this evolution from simple file servers to more sophisticated client-server models.
Can you break those down a bit for someone like me who's not a tech expert?
Sure, imagine a library. Okay. In a file server model, the server is like a giant bookshelf holding all the books.
Okay.
Clients or computers on the network, they can access and read those books.
Yeah.
But all the processing, it happens on the client side.
Okay.
It's a simple setup, but it can get bogged down if everyone's trying to grab a book at the same time.
Like a bottleneck at the library entrance.
Exactly. Client-server models, on the other hand, they distribute the workload.
Okay.
The server acts like a librarian, managing and retrieving the data, while the clients, they focus on presenting that data to the user
I see.
in a meaningful way.
So it's much more efficient.
Absolutely. The book even goes into these advanced client-server architectures, like 2-tiered and 3-tiered models,
Okay.
which further separate concerns and boost scalability and flexibility.
Okay. It's amazing how these fundamental concepts
Yeah.
from modern systems are still the building blocks of how we design software today, even with all the advancements.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of building blocks, let's talk about data warehousing.
Okay. How does that fit into this interconnected world?
I've always imagined it as like some massive, mysterious data vault.
Well, it's not that mysterious.
Okay.
Once you break it down,
Okay.
data warehousing is about bringing together data from all these different sources into a central repository,
Okay.
kind of like a giant data lake.
Data analysts must love that.
They do. Valacich describes a 3-tiered architecture
Okay.
for data warehousing.
Okay.
You've got the operational systems where the data originates, the enterprise data warehouse, or EDW, where it's cleaned and integrated,
Uh-huh.
and then data marts, which are these smaller, focused subsets of data for specific business needs.
I see. So instead of trying to make sense of like raw data that's scattered everywhere, you have this nice organized warehouse
Exactly.
to explore.
Precisely.
Okay.
And he stresses the importance of data quality.
Right.
You need solid processes to extract, transform, and load, or ETL, that data into the warehouse
Detail.
to make sure it's reliable and consistent. Garbage in, garbage out, right.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about these big picture concepts of distributed systems and data warehousing.
Uh-huh.
Let's get down to brass tacks.
Okay.
How do we actually build these software systems?
I like it.
That's where Chapter 13 takes us, the implementation phase,
Okay.
where all that planning and design starts to become a reality.
Right.
Think coding, testing, installation, documentation, training users, and providing ongoing support.
There's a lot of moving parts.
It's a lot.
Okay.
It's like a carefully choreographed dance.
I like that analogy.
Valacich meticulously breaks down the implementation process into these key activities, highlighting the importance of each step.
Okay, let's start with coding. That's
Well,
where the magic happens, right?
You could say that. Coding is about translating those design specifications
Uh-huh.
into working software.
Okay.
And he emphasizes the importance of coding standards and best practices
Yeah.
to ensure that the code is high quality, readable, and maintainable.
So it's like writing a book.
Yes.
You want it to be well-written, easy to understand,
Exactly.
able to stand the test of time.
And just like a book goes through rounds of editing,
Yeah.
software needs to be rigorously tested.
Makes sense. You don't want to release software that's full of bugs
No, you don't.
and glitches.
The book outlines different levels of testing,
Okay.
from unit testing, which focuses on individual modules,
Okay.
to integration testing,
Uh-huh.
which checks how those modules work together,
Yeah.
and finally system testing, which tests the entire system as a whole.
So you're testing the engine, the brakes, the transmission separately,
Yeah,
and then taking the whole car for a test drive.
precisely. Valacich stresses the importance of a structured approach
Okay.
with a test plan and defined test cases
Uh-huh.
to ensure that you're covering all aspects of the system's functionality.
And I bet automation plays a big role here.
It does, especially for large and complex systems.
Yeah.
He highlights the role of automated testing tools to streamline the process
Yeah.
and ensure comprehensive coverage.
Okay, so once you've tested everything, then it's time for installation.
Installation is a critical step.
Okay.
Valacich discusses different approaches, from a direct cutover,
Okay.
where the old system is replaced abruptly,
Mm-hmm.
to a parallel installation where both systems run simultaneously for a period of time.
Okay.
So it's about choosing the approach that best suits the organization's needs.
Right, and risk tolerance.
Exactly. He highlights the importance of careful planning for installation, including things like data migration, user training, and having rollback procedures in case something goes wrong.
It's like moving into a new house.
Yes,
You got to plan carefully, pack your belongings.
exactly, and have a backup plan in case something goes wrong.
Right.
And once the system is installed,
Yeah.
it's crucial to document it thoroughly.
Documentation.
I know, it might not sound as exciting as coding or designing,
Yeah.
but documentation is essential.
I can see how it would be easy to overlook
It is.
when you're so focused on getting it up and running.
Yeah.
But this book really emphasizes documentation. Why is that?
Well, documentation serves several purposes.
Okay.
It helps users understand how to use the system.
Okay.
It guides developers in maintaining and enhancing it in the future.
Right.
And it provides a historical record of its design and functionality.
So it's like a user manual, a technical guide, and a historical archive all rolled into one.
You've got it.
Hmm.
Valacich discusses different types of documentation, from user manuals to system documentation to technical specifications.
Wow.
And he emphasizes the need for clear language, visual aids, and examples to make it accessible and understandable.
You want to make sure people actually read it.
Exactly. And speaking of digestion, user training is another critical aspect of implementation.
Oh, training. That's so important.
It is.
You can have the best software in the world, but if users don't know how to use it,
It's useless.
it's all for nothing.
Absolutely. Valacich highlights these different training methods, from traditional classroom-style training to more hands-on interactive approaches.
Okay.
He emphasizes the importance of tailoring training to the specific needs and roles of different user groups.
So not a one-size-fits-all.
Not at all. You need to meet users where they are and give them the specific knowledge and skills they need to be successful.
Okay, and finally, implementation involves providing ongoing support to users.
Support is so crucial.
Yeah, what happens when users encounter problems or have questions after the system goes live?
Right.
Are they just left on their own?
Not at all. Valacich discusses different support mechanisms, from help desks to online forums to dedicated support staff.
Okay.
He highlights the importance of timely, accurate, and helpful support to ensure user satisfaction.
It's like having a safety net,
Exactly.
knowing you can reach out for help if you need it.
And he emphasizes that support goes beyond simply fixing bugs or answering questions.
Okay.
It's about building relationships with users and ensuring they have a positive experience with the system.
So it's about creating a community.
Exactly.
Around the system.
And with that,
Yeah.
we come to the end of Chapter 13,
Okay.
covering the implementation phase.
Wow.
It's a complex and multifaceted process, but it's ultimately the culmination of all the hard work that goes into designing and building a software system.
It's the moment when all those plans and designs become a reality
Yes,
that people can use and interact with.
exactly. And now, in Chapter 14, we move on to the final phase of the SDLC, maintenance.
Maintenance, it kind of gets a bad rap.
It does.
It's seen as the less glamorous side of software engineering.
Right.
But this book dedicates a whole chapter to it, so I'm assuming it's pretty important.
Maintenance is absolutely essential for the long-term success of any software system.
Okay.
It's about keeping the system running smoothly, fixing bugs, making enhancements, and adapting to changing needs.
So it's like taking care of a car.
Yes,
You need to change the oil, rotate the tires, make repairs.
perfect analogy. The book outlines different types of maintenance: corrective maintenance to address bugs and errors,
Okay.
adaptive maintenance to adjust the system to changing business needs,
Huh.
and perfective maintenance to improve performance and usability.
It's a continuous cycle.
Exactly. And Valacich highlights the challenges of maintenance, including coordinating with different stakeholders.
So how do you manage maintenance effectively with all those challenges?
Well, Modern Systems discusses various aspects of maintenance management,
Okay.
from organizing maintenance personnel to tracking change requests to using automated tools to support those activities.
It sounds like a lot of organization.
It's about creating a structured and systematic approach to maintenance to ensure that it's done efficiently and effectively.
So it's not just reacting to problems as they arise, it's about having a plan in place
Exactly, a proactive plan.
to keep the system healthy and thriving.
Precisely. He also stresses the importance of documentation and communication in maintenance. Clear and up-to-date documentation helps developers understand the system's inner workings, and effective communication between developers, users, and stakeholders ensures that maintenance activities are aligned with everyone's needs and priorities.
So it's like having a well-maintained map
Yeah.
and clear directions.
A great analogy. And speaking of complex terrain, the book dedicates a section specifically to website maintenance.
Oh, websites have their own challenges when it comes to maintenance, right?
Absolutely. Websites are often live 24/7,
Yeah,
so maintenance needs to be done strategically to avoid disrupting users.
makes sense.
Valacich highlights various techniques for website maintenance, from using content management systems or CMS
EMS.
to implementing version control to
Okay.
automating deployment processes.
So it's like doing surgery while the patient is still awake.
That's a vivid analogy. And he emphasizes the importance of thorough testing before deploying any changes to the live environment
Right.
to avoid introducing new bugs or breaking existing functionality.
Yeah, you don't want to accidentally crash your website.
Exactly. And finally, Valacich highlights the importance of monitoring website performance
Yep.
and user feedback
Yeah.
to identify areas for improvement
Okay.
and adapt to changing needs.
So it's a continuous feedback loop
Exactly.
to make sure the website stays relevant.
Precisely. And with that, we come to the end of Chapter 14,
Wow.
which covers the final phase of the SDLC, maintenance.
Ugh, what a journey.
I know, right?
Exploring the entire life cycle of software systems,
It's a lot.
from those initial sparks of an idea
Mhm.
to the ongoing work of keeping them running smoothly.
It really is. It's a lot of work.
Modern systems is pretty comprehensive.
It really is. It's a truly insightful guide
It is.
for navigating the complexities of software engineering.
It is.
Valachich's book, it provides practical advice, real-world examples, and a deep understanding of both the technical and human aspects of this field.
Yeah, it's amazing how much ground we've covered.
I know, right?
From understanding that SDLC and the different types of software to like the intricacies of implementation and the crucial role of maintenance,
Right.
modern systems has given us a solid foundation for understanding the world of software engineering.
We've delved into distributed systems, data warehousing, the ins and outs of creating user-friendly interfaces, and the ongoing work of keeping systems running smoothly.
But there's still more to explore.
Oh, yeah.
In the final part of our deep dive,
Yes.
we'll revisit some of the key takeaways from modern systems
Okay.
and discuss how they connect to the bigger picture of software engineering today.
Sounds good.
Plus, we'll leave you with some thought-provoking questions to ponder
Ooh.
as you continue your own exploration of this fascinating field.
All right.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive into modern systems. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has.
Like we've really journeyed through that entire software development life cycle,
Yeah.
from the initial spark of an idea to the long haul of maintaining a system out in the real world.
It's remarkable how Valacich emphasizes that it really is a cycle,
Yeah.
The end of one project kind of plants the seeds for the next.
And it's all connected, right?
Oh, yeah.
Even a seemingly simple system can touch upon nearly every concept in this book.
Absolutely. Remember that online movie rental system for Broadway entertainment?
Oh, yeah, Carrie and her
It's ambitious.
ambitious project scope.
Absolutely. Even a system like that, which seemed pretty straightforward at first glance, it highlights the importance of aligning with BEC's overall business strategy.
Right.
Understanding those specific customer needs, designing intuitive interfaces, and making sure that it can seamlessly integrate with back-end systems like Entertainment Tracker.
It's like that saying, systems thinking is about seeing the forest in the trees.
Yes.
And this book really gives you the tools to do both.
What struck me most, connecting it all back to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
is how much software engineering has evolved, yet so many of those core principles in modern systems, they're still relevant.
I know. It's fascinating how Valacich talks about techniques like prototyping and rapid application development, which were pretty cutting edge back then.
And now we have agile methodologies and cloud computing and AI-powered tools.
I know. It's amazing.
The landscape is constantly changing.
Yeah, but those fundamentals
Yeah.
of understanding user needs, designing for usability, managing projects effectively,
Right.
those haven't gone out of style.
Exactly. Modern systems provide such a strong foundation to adapt and thrive in whatever the future of software engineering holds.
So, learner, as we wrap up our deep dive here,
Yeah.
what's your biggest takeaway? What's the thing you're going to apply first from all this?
For me, it's the realization that every software system, no matter how large or small, is built on these principles.
Yeah.
Understanding them, it gives you a superpower, the ability to not just use software,
Yeah.
but to think critically about how it works,
Right.
how to improve it,
Yeah.
and maybe even
Uh-huh.
create it yourself.
And that's what's so exciting about this field.
Right.
There's always something new to learn and explore.
Absolutely.
So keep those questions coming, learner,
Yeah.
because the deep dive never really ends.
Never ends.
Thanks for joining us.